I want you to picture last night. You're lying in bed, just staring up at the ceiling, and your mind is totally racing.
Oh, yeah, we've all been there.
Right, you're running through everything you just didn't get done that day, and you make that classic desperate, like, 11 p.m. promise to yourself.
Yeah.
You tell yourself, tomorrow I will change.
Tomorrow's the day I finally get my act together.
Exactly. I'm going to wake up early, I'm going to put the phone in another room, and I'm going to do the deep work. And then, well, the sun comes up.
And tomorrow actually arrives.
Yeah, and by 2 p.m., you've spent 2 hours tumbling down a massive rabbit hole of short-form videos. Your to-do list is completely untouched, and absolutely zero progress has been made.
It is an incredibly heavy feeling. And what inevitably follows that realization is just this punishing internal monologue.
Oh, completely.
I mean, we instantly default to character assassination. We tell ourselves that we lack discipline, or that we're lazy, or that we are just, fundamentally broken when it comes to productivity.
And that cycle of guilt, that is exactly what we are dismantling today. So, welcome back to the deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
Yeah, for our resident learners out there, those of you who are always trying to optimize, always seeking out new knowledge, but maybe constantly feeling bogged down by this invisible drag on your momentum, we have a very specific mission for this conversation.
We really do.
We are digging into the mechanics of our attention, and we're using insights synthesized from this fascinating piece of research called Stolen Focus and the Power of the 1% Improvement.
It's such a great text.
It really is. We are going to completely reframe how you look at productivity, focus, and most importantly, that paralyzing guilt.
Because the core premise we are unpacking today, it just completely flips the script on that 11 p.m. guilt trip. The reality is, your lack of progress is not a discipline problem.
Wait, really? Because it always feels like a discipline problem.
Right, but you are not inherently lazy.
I was thinking about this when I was going through our notes for today. The way we normally treat our lack of focus, it's like trying to drive a car with a micro leak in the fuel line.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, like you're pressing the gas pedal, the engine is sputtering, you aren't getting anywhere. And instead of checking the fuel line, you just start screaming at yourself to press the pedal harder.
Yes, exactly.
We assume that if we just had more willpower, we could force the engine to run.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize the mechanics of what is actually happening. I mean, we are completely misdiagnosing our own struggle.
So we're looking in the wrong place entirely.
Completely. We think the problem is a lack of horsepower, like our inability to just push through, when the reality is that our cognitive fuel, our attention, is actively draining away through a leak we aren't even acknowledging.
Wow.
The problem isn't that you aren't trying, it's that your environment is siphoning your fuel before it ever even reaches the engine.
Look, I mean, we all know our phones are distracting. We have all heard the lectures about screen time.
Sure.
But what this research does differently is break down the actual anatomy of how that time is taken, and more importantly, the emotional sequence that follows.
Right, the time thieves.
Yes, they call the culprits time thieves. And the scenario they use to describe how they operate is, well, it's so painfully universal.
It really hits home.
You sit down to do the work, you open the textbook or the coding tutorial or the language app, you are full of intention. And then the screen lights up.
And it is never a conscious decision to just abandon your work. It's just the whisper of, let me just check this one notification.
Just 1 minute. I say that to myself constantly. Let me just clear this notification so I have a clean slate to work.
Yep.
And then 40 minutes just evaporate into the void. But what I found really illuminating here wasn't just the 40 minutes of lost time. It was the neurological hangover that happens at minute 41.
The emotional toll.
Yeah.
When you finally pull yourself out of that scroll, you do not feel rested. You haven't been engaging in actual leisure.
Not at all.
You feel this very specific triad of emotions: profound tiredness, heavy guilt, and a feeling of being entirely stuck.
Which is so counterintuitive, right? I mean, if I just sat on the couch for 40 minutes doing essentially nothing physically demanding, I should feel recharged.
I think so.
But I feel completely exhausted. And because I feel exhausted, the guilt just washes over me and I instantly internalize it. I don't think, wow, my dopamine receptors just got taken for a ride. I think I am a lazy person who can't even sit at a desk for an hour.
Right, and that exhaustion makes perfect biological sense when you look at the mechanics of the apps we're dealing with.
How so?
Well, you aren't resting during those 40 minutes. Your brain is running a marathon. You are being subjected to a variable reward schedule.
Like a slot machine.
It is the exact same psychological mechanism used in slot machines.
Hmm.
Your brain is getting these micro hits of dopamine at completely unpredictable intervals.
Wow.
And that drains your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for executive function and self-control. So by the time you actually put the phone down, your biological capacity for discipline is quite literally depleted.
Okay, so I hear the neuroscience, but I have to push back here on a human level.
Sure, go ahead.
Because as much as I understand variable rewards and dopamine loops, nobody is holding a gun to my head forcing me to pick up the device.
Right.
If my time is being stolen by these time thieves, aren't I the one leaving the front door wide open? I mean, am I not complicit in this theft?
It's a really natural reaction to want to take full responsibility.
Right.
And, personal agency obviously matters.
Right.
But we really have to look at the asymmetry of the battlefield here. Yes, you were performing the physical action of clicking the icon.
Right. My finger tapped the screen.
But the environment on the other side of that click, it has been engineered by thousands of the smartest engineers and psychologists on the planet with one singular goal:
To get me clicking.
to bypass your conscious decision-making entirely. These time thieves operate stealthily. They literally weaponize your evolutionary biology.
Okay, that sounds terrifying. What do you mean?
Well, human beings have a built-in novelty bias. For our ancestors, noticing a sudden change in the environment, like a rustling bush or a flash of color, that was a survival mechanism.
Because it meant food or a predator.
Exactly. Modern technology hijacks that exact survival circuitry.
So we are bringing basic analog human willpower to a fight against supercomputers that are designed to trigger our deepest evolutionary reflexes.
Precisely.
We're getting robbed, but the pickpocket is so skilled at exploiting our blind spots that we don't even feel the hand in our pocket. We just wonder why we're suddenly broke.
That's a great way to put it. It is theft by 1,000 tiny engineered cuts. And recognizing that asymmetry, that's the first step out of the guilt cycle.
So dropping the lazy label.
Yes. You are not lazy.
Mm.
You are simply operating in an environment that is actively hostile to sustained attention.
Okay, so if that's the reality, if brute force discipline is basically bringing a butter knife to a laser fight against algorithms, then how do we actually fight back?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because my instinct is to just try harder. To, lock the phone in a safe, declare a dopamine fast, and completely overhaul my entire life by tomorrow morning.
Which almost always fails. Because it relies on the very prefrontal cortex that is already exhausted.
Right, the drained battery.
Exactly. And this is where the framework pivots to a solution that feels incredibly counterintuitive.
Okay.
If you are fighting an enemy that steals your life in stealthy one-minute increments, you cannot defeat it with a massive, exhausting, one-time surge of willpower. You have to fight back with minutes.
The 1% philosophy.
Yes. The premise is that you do not need a complete lifestyle overhaul.
Yeah.
You don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. and suddenly become a monk.
Thankfully.
You just need a 1% improvement.
I'm going to be honest, when I first read the 1% concept, I really struggled with it.
Why is that?
Well, I hear the popular math, right? That if you improve 1% every day, you become 37 times better in a year.
Right, the compounding effect.
But on a daily human level, patching 1% of a leaky bucket feels completely useless when you feel like you're actively drowning in wasted hours.
It feels too small.
Exactly. If I just lost an hour to a doom scroll, how does reading for 5 minutes at a bus stop actually move the needle on my goals? It just feels like a drop in the ocean.
It feels insignificant because our culture conditions us to worship massive transformation.
Hey, what the movie montage?
Yes, we want the cinematic montage. But let's look at the actual mechanism of what that 5 minutes does in the brain. It's not about the sheer volume of information you acquire in those 5 minutes.
Okay.
It is about neuroplasticity. Every time you choose to engage with your goal, even for a few minutes, you're firing a specific set of neurons.
Oh, the source had this really cool plant analogy for this, right?
Yes, the plant analogy perfectly captures it. You don't shout at a plant to grow or try to force it by pulling on its leaves.
You just give it a little water and sunlight daily.
And it grows silently but powerfully.
Right. It's kind of like paving a dirt path in a dense forest. If you walk through an overgrown forest once, the grass just bounces back.
Nothing changes.
Right. Nothing changes. You have to walk that exact same path every single day. At first, it's exhausting, but eventually you pack down the dirt, you clear the brush, and eventually that path becomes the route of least resistance.
That is exactly what happens with myelination in the brain.
Myelination.
Yeah, the neural pathways you use repeatedly become coded in myelin, which makes the signals travel faster and more efficiently.
Oh, wow.
So when you do that 5 minutes of reading at the bus stop, you are packing down the dirt on a new neural pathway. And that leads to the deepest psychological insight of this entire framework.
The identity shift.
Yes.
Because this is where the concept moves from just a cute productivity hack to something really profound. Choosing to spend 10 minutes learning instead of 10 minutes scrolling isn't really about time management.
Not at all.
It is a fundamental message you are sending to your own subconscious.
Behaviors are votes for your identity. By taking that small 10-minute action consistently, you are providing undeniable evidence to your brain. You are telling yourself, I am a learner.
And there is a massive chasm between saying, I am trying to learn a new language, and saying, I am a language learner.
A huge difference.
When you say you are trying to do something, it implies a struggle. It's like an external chore that requires heavy lifting from your willpower.
Right.
But an identity dictates your behavior automatically. If you truly identify as a reader, you don't agonize over whether to read a book before bed. That's just what readers do. It completely removes the internal friction.
And that identity shift is the ultimate defense against the time thieves. Because when your identity changes, your default behaviors change.
So the algorithms lose their grip.
Exactly, because scrolling no longer aligns with who you perceive yourself to be.
Okay, so if the goal is to shift my identity by laying down these new neural dirt paths, how do I actually stop my autopilot from hijacking my morning before this identity is fully formed?
You need a system.
Right. How do I implement a 1% improvement tomorrow without just slipping right back into the void?
The research lays out 3 very deliberate, tactical steps to bridge that gap between intention and identity. The first 2 are deeply intertwined: intentionality and capturing your pocket time.
Oh, the pocket time concept completely changed how I look at my day. The idea is to stop letting time happen by accident and to start treating it like small coins.
We are remarkably wasteful with fragments of time.
We really are. The analogy that clicked for me was finding spare change in the couch cushions.
Right.
If you are cleaning your living room and you find a quarter or a dime or even just a few pennies, you don't sweep them into the trash just because they aren't a crisp $100 bill.
No, you keep them.
You keep them. They have inherent value.
Yeah.
But we throw away our temporal spare change constantly. If I have a 5-minute gap before a Zoom meeting starts, my brain instantly says, well, I can't do anything meaningful in 5 minutes.
I just toss it.
So I throw those 5 minutes in the trash by opening a social media app.
And that is exactly where the 1% improvement lives. It lives in the couch cushions of your day. The text offers a brilliant example: waiting for the bus.
Yeah.
It's maybe 5 or 7 minutes. You can use that exact window to learn 3 new vocabulary words or review 1 concept. It's not about mastering the entire subject in that window.
It's the vote.
It's about casting another vote for your identity. You are utilizing the pocket time to pack down the dirt on that neural pathway.
But to actually utilize that pocket time, you have to survive the friction of starting. And that brings us to the third tactical step: protecting your focus.
This is critical.
And the advice here is stark. It reads like a literal battle plan. Close the door, put the phone in another room, actively engineer your environment.
Because if you don't build a physical fortress around your attention, the time thieves will slip in. As we discussed, you cannot rely on the prefrontal cortex to resist a perfectly engineered variable reward system in real time.
The battery is dead.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to design an environment where doing the productive thing is the path of least resistance. And engaging with a distraction requires actual physical effort.
Which naturally brings us to the final and I think the most actionable tool in this entire deep dive, the GPS method.
This is how you bypass decision fatigue entirely. The distinction made here is crucial for anyone trying to build a habit, saying, I want to improve today, or I'm going to study later. That is not a goal. It is a wish.
And wishes don't pack down the dirt path.
They don't, because a wish has no coordinates.
Yeah.
A GPS requires a highly specific destination to guide you.
Right.
If you get in your car and tell your GPS, take me somewhere nice, it just sits there. You can't process the ambiguity.
So you have to give your brain an actual address. The example they use is just brilliantly simple. Instead of saying, I will study today, which is vague and instantly overwhelming to the brain, you anchor it.
Yes.
After breakfast, I will study for 10 minutes.
Let's look at the mechanics of why that works so well. Every time you have to make a choice, like what to study, when to study, where to sit, you are burning glucose in the brain.
Decision fatigue.
Exactly. You are inducing decision fatigue. If you wake up with the vague intention to study later, your brain has to constantly evaluate throughout the day. Should I do it now? How about after lunch? Maybe tonight.
And your brain hates expending that energy.
It despises it.
Yeah.
So it defaults to delaying the action.
It's the friction of ambiguity. But if the rule is permanently set to, after breakfast, I study for 10 minutes, all the friction evaporates.
Because the decision was already made yesterday.
Right. Breakfast ends, the book opens, it becomes an automatic behavioral sequence. You've given your brain the exact coordinates, so it doesn't have to think, it just executes.
And when you combine that GPS method with the 1% philosophy, you are building an incredibly resilient system. You are using pocket time, you are protecting your focus, and you are removing decision fatigue.
Okay, I am fully on board with the system. But we have to address the elephant in the room here.
Which is?
What happens when the system inevitably breaks down? Because no matter how perfectly we design our environment, we are human beings. The bus will be late, the morning will be chaotic, our prefrontal cortex will be fried, and the time thieves will score a victory. We will miss a day.
It's going to happen.
So when that happens, doesn't the compounding math of the 1% improvement just totally fall apart?
This is where the framework delivers its most vital and honestly most forgiving insight. It's the concept of the grace of consistency.
I love this part.
The core message is, if you miss a day, do not panic. Do not fall back into the character assassination of the 11 p.m. guilt trip.
There is a specific phrase from the research that really anchored this for me. Your dream is patient.
It's a profound way to reframe ambition. Your goals, your dreams, your desired identity, they do not require a flawless, unbroken streak of thousands of perfect days.
They don't need a robot.
Exactly. I don't need a robot. What they actually need is a consistent human being, someone who inevitably misses a day, acknowledges the misstep without internalizing it as a failure of character, and simply comes back to the dirt path the next morning.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what is the ultimate takeaway for you, the learner, listening right now? It is time to officially retire the word lazy from your vocabulary.
Here.
It is a false diagnosis. You are simply someone who is learning, perhaps for the very first time, the mechanics of how your attention is hijacked and how to actively protect your cognitive fuel from an environment designed to drain it.
You are learning to patch the micro leak in the fuel line.
Yes. And even if you are moving slowly, even if you are just capturing 5 minutes of spare change in the couch cushions of your day, you are still building that neural pathway. You are still moving forward.
The pace might be gradual, but the compounding effect of that consistency is unstoppable.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on, something that builds on everything we've unpacked today about algorithms, dopamine loops, and guilt. We talked about how terrible it feels to miss a day and how quickly we punish ourselves, but consider the actual business model of the attention economy. What if those modern systems, the endless feeds, the notifications, the algorithms, what if they are actively relying on your perfectionism?
Oh, wow. That is a deeply unsettling but really necessary question to ask.
Think about the mechanics of it. What if the entire system banks on the fact that when you inevitably stumble, when you miss one day of your goal, you will feel such intense, unbearable guilt that you just throw your hands up and surrender?
Because the moment you abandon your goal out of shame, well, where do you go?
Exactly. You fall right back into their ecosystem. You seek comfort in the scroll. By dropping the toxic need to be perfect, by refusing to feel guilty when you stumble, and by stubbornly returning to that tiny 1% improvement the next day. You aren't just optimizing your productivity, you are actively rebelling against a trillion-dollar industry that profits from your distraction.
Consistency isn't just self-improvement, it is an act of rebellion.
Something to think about tomorrow morning when you find yourself with 5 spare minutes waiting for the bus.